Hello guys, you're welcome back to my channel. This is Sim and Stitches again. Alright, so on today's tutorial I want you to come along with me. Let's make this beautiful dress that you are seeing on my screen. We are going to be making it. I'll teach you how I made it. Okay, so the first thing you want to do now is to draft your pattern. So I went ahead to take my brown paper and I marked out all the measurements that I needed. I took all the length measurements, so I stopped at my hip line because there is a joining from the hip, so I stopped all the length measurements from there, and then I drew my lines on the length measurement and I took all the round measurements. So I have a short video on how to take a dress and top measurement, so and how to draft a top pattern. You can watch that video. It will give you broad understanding of what I did here. So I took my shoulder measurement and I took my armhole measurement. So this is what I just went ahead to take. I marked out all the lines that I need for this design. All right, so because of the technicality of the detail in this on this gown, so I made some special measurements which you will be seeing along as I draft this pattern. Okay, so the next thing after drafting the neck, I drafted the shoulder slope and I connected it to the armhole line. So right there I marked out my bust measurement, and I also took all the other round measurements. I took the under bust measurement, the natural curve or the waist measurement, the navel measurement or the low waist, and then the hip line measurement. At this point, I have not yet added any seam allowance, and you will know why. So I went on and I joined the curve lines together as I have drafted on my pattern. So I connected the hip line to all other round measurements that I have there. So there you have it. It's taking shape. The next thing, I joined my neck, and then to give me the v-neck, I wanted a v-neck, and the v-neck, it's supposed to be deep. So I used like up to 8 inches. Yours can be deeper than that depending on what you want. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now, from my under bust measurement, I'm going to come in by 3 inches. So I marked my 3 inches like that, and then from the depth of my neck, that V part of my neck, I'm going to connect it to that 3 inches that I marked. So you can see what I did there. I marked my 3 inches on the under bust, and then I connected it to the neck depth, the v-neck depth that I already marked. So I connected it, but instead of having it in a straight slant way, I made it to be curved because I'm trying to shape out the bust area. So there's a diagonal line on the midpoint, the lines indicating the pattern of each of the bust line. So that is what I just drafted there, as you can see it in that picture. Now this part I'm going to be cutting out separately from the other bodies of the design. All right, so the next thing I went ahead to do now is to mark my allowances on each of the measurement I took. I added my allowance. So then on the navel, I marked my 4 inches. I came down by 4 inches. So I'm going to be marking, okay, so that is where my basque is going to end. So this top, or this dress rather, is having a basque. So I marked from the navel. I came down by 4 inches from the navel. So that's where my basque will stop. So as I told you, there are so many details on this dress. So apart from the bust area, there's also a basque. So I marked 4 inches from my navel. So after that, I extended my bust area by another 4 inches because there's going to be a slant gathers under the bust. So before joining the bust area to the under bust, it's going to be having a slight gather. So I added the extra inches to give me the volume. So I added 4 inches extra to give me the volume, to just do a bit of, not that much, but a bit of gathers on the under bust line. So then next thing I did was to add my allowances on the other part of the dress. I already added 4 inches to the bust area, so I went on to add my 2 inches seam allowance on the bodies of the dress. So I just marked it, and then the next thing I did was to join the seam allowance in with the curve line. As you can see, it is from the under bust. Don't forget, from the under bust, because the under bust section is going to be different when I'm cutting it from the bust area. So I marked 1 inch allowance on my slant back slope. So I marked 1 inch from the slant back slope, and I connected it with the allowance that I have from the sides. So this is also going to be my joining allowance to join it with the down part, and then I connected with the side seam allowance, and that is it. I hope you understand what I just did. A very simple technique. So I'm just going to run over it again. So after taking your basic length measurement, you're going to mark out your round measurement on your basic top measurement. And then the next thing I did was to mark 3 inches from my under bust, and I connected that line with my neck depth that you have in that picture. The next thing I did was to mark my basque line, which is 4 inches from my navel, and then I marked my extra allowance on the sides. And then I went to the bust area. I added 4 inches instead of 2 inches allowance. I added 4 inches because I'm going to be having a little volume on the under bust line. Then I connected everything together and I cut out my shape. Don't forget that I drafted my armhole curve as well. And that is all I did to draft the pattern for this special detail at the front of the top. So after cutting it out, I just went ahead to place it on my fabric, and I cut out the shapes on the fabric. I cut it out. I cut it on fold. Each of these was cut on fold. As you can see what I'm saying there, the folding, the extra volume that I'm going to be adding on the under bust area. So you can, at this point, if you have done this correctly, go ahead and cut out your fabric. So on each side, remember I said I'm cutting on fold, but then I added ½ inch allowance to the midpoint and the down part. That is just to give me extra allowance to join it with the under bust. The bust, this is the bust piece I'm cutting on. I added 0.5 allowance to help me join it with the under bust area. The under bust area as well, I added 0.5 allowance. So if you follow this technique, it will not jump and it will not be too tight. So it is very easy to do. Just watch and do as I have done in this video. Alright, the next thing now is for me to cut the back. So I marked the basic top pattern as well, and then I added my extra allowance, the inches. Don't forget, on your basic top pattern, you're going to make the length to be on the hip line. So I added my 2 inches for the zip allowance, and then I took all the round measurements and the length measurements. So I marked it all the way through from the shoulder down to the hip line. I took my armhole curve. Just watch that my video on basic top or basic dress pattern. Very easy to I'm going to put the link to that video in my description. All right, so the next thing, I took the round measurement and I added 2 inches for my allowance, seam allowances. So I marked it all round on the round inches. Now on my that line, I'm going to be manipulating it and I'm going to be using it as my lacing line. So instead of me having an extra fabric to be my lace, because this top is going to be having lace at the back, like a corset lace. So on the dart line as well, I used that line as an entry for me to place the corset lacing. So then I also made a basque on the back as well, the way I did for the front. You come down by 4 inches on your navel line. So I marked it like that, and then I connected it. I joined it together, and there you have it. Very easy. Now what I did to avoid it folding at the back, I came in by 1 inch, and then I connected the 1 inch on the natural curve to the neck, as you can see there. So it's going to have a slope at the natural curve instead of being straight. So this is just a sewing technique to avoid your back zipper folding when you are stitching the zipper. So it will just lay flat and it will be so nice. It will lay to give the slope at the back, that spinal cord slope. It will fall in place and sit well on your fabric, on your clients when you're done stitching. So then I went on to cut out my fabric after cutting the pattern, and then the sewing begins. So after this, I went on to cut my bogus sleeve. So this sleeve is having extra volume, so I cut it out, and then I placed each of these pieces on my hairstay. I added hairstay because the fabric I'm using is a Duchess, so it's slicky and it's soft, but I need this area to have volume because I'm going to be putting boning on this particular area. So I needed to add the hairstay on it to give it structure. Now I have a video on how to cut an exaggerated sleeve. For this sleeve that I'm having on this picture, you can watch the sleeve pattern, how to cut an exaggerated sleeve, to give you a bit of understanding of what and how I did for my sleeve. So after doing that, I went on to iron it, and then I added my boning. So there's a previous video that I've made on how to add your boning casing and your boning on your corset. So you can watch that video also. I will link it in my description. And then I joined the front piece. You can see what I mean when I said I was going to be adding extra gathers at the underbust line. So this is what you have. It's very simple to make. Sincerely, it is very simple. I enjoyed myself while making it because as I was seeing the results, it was giving me joy. The next thing is to go ahead and add my pleats. I couldn't film the part where I was splitting on the machine, but then I promise you to make another video on that. All right, so I went on to add my pleat. This is a knife pleat, 1 inch knife pleat. That was what I did. So I added it. So it was a bit stressful. It took time, but then it came out nice. So now this is the lacing at the back. For the back that I told you I was going to add, I added the lacing. I also have a video on this. Watch my YouTube channel. I have a lot of videos for you guys. I want you to watch my channel to see it. Okay, so after doing that, I went on to pleat the downside for the back as well. You can see this. I'm just giving an illustration. It wasn't easy me videoing on the machine while I was sewing, but I promise you I will do another video on that. Very easy to make. And then I joined the pleat at the back as well. I don't have the pleating machine, but I have a steaming iron, and it did very good for me, very good job. And then you can see what I did there. So I did for the right side and the left side. And it was after that that I joined my zippers. I went on to join my zippers and it aligned. It came out very nice. So after that, I went ahead to join the sides together. I joined it at the shoulder and I joined it at the side. So I did a flat French seam on each of the sides to give it more fitting and to avoid the fabric grain from removing. So after that, I went on also to join the sleeve. So the sleeve has an elastic at the wrist. So I added my elastic and I joined it. I pleated the upper part of the sleeve because it has a bit of gathers, just little bit of gathers to give it small puff effect. So that was what I did there, and there you have it. The dress is ready to be worn. Okay, the last thing I did now is to hem my garment. So I was done stitching the sides, and then I took it to the hemming to the same machine and I hemmed it, and then after that I ironed it all through. Now this is a very beautiful dress. The dress came out so nice. My clients loved it, and it's very easy to make. I used for my clients I used 2.5 yeah trousers of Duchess fabric. So it came out so nice. It's just so beautiful. You can also give it a trial and tag me Sim and Stitches when you post yours. I want you to tag me. I'm also on Instagram, Sim and Stitches. Tag me to your post. I would love to see what yours looks like. And then I just went on ironed it. It takes, because of the pleats, it stressed me in ironing. So I kept on ironing and ironing, arranging and arranging. And then it just came out nice. By the time you see the result of your work, you wouldn't even think of the stress anymore. And that will be all. Thank you guys for watching this tutorial. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Help my ministry. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, share and leave a comment in the comment section. Thank you guys. I'll come again with another interesting design. Bye.